This is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com, coming at you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs keep up a racket all night long. For just a few minutes, we're on number 96, according to Miss Francine, out of 333 questions. Catechism. That means questions and answers that the student learns about our Constitution. Is a bill that's put before Congress that Congress votes on and passes by a majority, is it both houses agree, Senate and House of Representatives agree, is it now a law? Answer, not yet. The engrossed bill is engrossed, what it says, is sent to the President of the United States for his approbation. His approbation. What does that mean? Well, just cut the suffix, that's that little couple letters on the front off, and cut the suffix or the prefix off in the front and the suffix off in the back, and what do you get? Probation. Probe. Just narrow it down. Probe. What does probe mean? Well, you've heard of probate. That's where you take, if somebody has a will, it goes into probate. What does that mean? That means you probe it. Probe. Well, what does it mean to probe something? It means to take a stick or a fork and stick it in there, see if it's done. See? Called probing. And approbation means to probe. It means probate. It means to test. It means to stick it, see if it's done, see if it's okay. Well, approbation. And if he, the President of the United States, sticks a fork in it, thinks it's good enough, he approves it. Now, what does that mean? Well, the word, if you take the prefix off, you got the word prove, approve. Put a prefix or a suffix on a word, all it does is intensifies the word somehow. Approve means it's proved up, and he thinks it's okay. He put it through the fire, and it proved good enough. If he does that, he must return the bill together with his objections, if he has objections to it, in writing, says our Constitution, to the House where it began. You know, the House of Representatives puts forth a tax bill. By the way, only the House of Representatives can originate a tax bill. Any tax bill that originates in the Senate of the United States, even if it passes both houses and the president signs it, somebody could go into court and say, wait a minute, no, you didn't follow our common law process. What's our common law process? Well, the way things are done. You didn't follow that, therefore this is not a law. You didn't follow the common law process that the way we're supposed to vote for president, therefore this election was fraudulent. That happened in 2020. It also happened in 1960. And by the way, it's been happening for decades. It's nothing new. And they're not following the proper process. That's our common law. It's how we do things, not what the result will be, but how we do it. So we have a process that we use every step to make the legislation of Congress for it to rightfully and duly, as they say, become law. It's a process, friends. What do we call that process? Well, more particularly, we call it due process. Well, what is due process? It is the process that is due and owing to all concerned. Well, what is due process? It is our common law. It is our common law. Our Constitution of the United States is a brief of common law government. What does that mean? That means it's all about how we go about, how government is supposed to go about doing things, not what the outcome is. There's nothing in our Constitution about, here's the definition of murder. Here's the way that family law will work out adoptions and marriages. Here's the way contract law, the rules of contract law, and here's what a good contract is. Nothing in there about most of our common law tradition. Nothing. It's all about government. And it's all about how government is supposed to work. And the how is our common law. The how is our common law. And our Constitution of the United States is nothing new. It's just common law government, which we'd had for centuries as English-speaking people, going back for a couple of thousand years. It's just that we know of. Beyond that, we don't know. We don't have any records. But this how is the government of the United States is fundamentally the way people of those tribes that settled in Britain, the way they've been doing things for a couple thousand years. Fundamentally speaking, yes. Even the use of the jury. Our common law did not start with Magna Carta in the year 1215. That's an important stepping stone in the history of our common law, as is our Constitution of the United States. But there are many others going back further. Well, what happens if the president does not approve this bill? If he does not approve it, he must return the bill together with his objections, I said that, in writing, to the House where it began. Let's say it's a tax bill. Constitution says it has to begin in the House of Representatives. So if he if he doesn't want to sign it, he puts his objections to it in writing together with that bill that was sent, the proposed legislation. He doesn't send it back to the Senate. He sends it back to the House of Representatives so they can start all over again from the jump. That's the whole point. Start the process again. Do it again. Well, that House must copy the whole of these objections into their journal and then consider the bill once more if they want to. They don't have to, but if they want to, they can. When they have done this, if 2/3 of that House shall agree to pass the bill, they must send it, together with the president's objections to it, to the other House, the Senate. There, the bill must, in like manner, be reconsidered. And if 2/3 of this House also agree to pass it, it becomes law. Forget the president at that point. But in all such cases, the names of all the members of each House who vetoed for and against the bill must be recorded in the journal. Why? Because our common law tradition is all about sunshine. In a lot of our states, we have what we call sunshine laws. That means the precise records of everything that goes on in the courts and the executive branch of government and the legislature must be written down for everybody to read so they know what they're doing. You've heard of the deep state. As far as anybody knows or can find out, that phrase, deep state, began with the British king that authorized the translation of this Bible. The British king that authorized the translation of the King James Bible. His name is King James I. He's the one, as far back as we can tell, that first used the words deep state. And here's what he said. Nobody has any business knowing what goes on in the deep state. That's the same thing that the left is saying now. It's none of your blasted business what goes on in government. We do as we please. No, 1,000 times no. Our common law tradition says it's got to be done in the sunshine. Secret government is part of the law of the city, not the law of the land, our common law. Not even a little bit. Miss Francine's queuing up a song, and Miss Francine, when I take a breather here in a little bit, I want you to play it if you will. All right. Well, where are we? Oh, here we are. One more question. Question 98. Suppose the President of the United States should neglect to sign and return a bill sent to him by Congress. He just puts it in a file 13, just throws it. I don't want to look. I don't care what these bozos say. I'm sick of them. Oh, presidents say things like that. I've heard them. Well, I mean, I've heard recordings of them, so I've never heard a president with my own ears say it when he said it. Have I ever met? Oh, no. I've never met a man that's been president of the United States. No, I haven't. I have shook hands with a few men that are running for president of the United States. Oh, yeah. no, I did see one time. I stood and watched George Bush one time in a smaller meeting. I didn't meet him though. I watched him pretty close. What he said. I was interviewed by the newspaper afterward. And they said, "Well, do you support him?" They knew who I was because I'd ran for Congress. I said, "Well, Clinton was president at that time," and I said, "Well, I am convinced of this, that he will stay clothed in the Oval Office. He will stay clothed." You see, Bill Clinton, it was obvious. He didn't keep his clothes on in the Oval Office. He was always fiddling around with the young pages and whatnot, and that's the nice way of saying it. I said, I think whatever else happens, this man will probably keep his pants on in the Oval Office. That's what counts right now. Is we can't have everything. Oh, they weren't going to print that, of course, but that's the fact of the matter. Well, I did talk to him. I did have a long conversation on a couple of occasions with Barry Goldwater. He ran for president. And Bob Dole, he ran for president. I spoke with him a few times. Who else? Well, not that it makes any difference. Who cares about politicians? Okay, the president doesn't sign a bill that Congress sends to him to sign and make it law. If he does not sign or return any bill, watch this, any bill, within 10 days after it is sent to him, not counting Sundays. Not counting Sundays, according to our Constitution, it becomes law. Unless in that time Congress shall have ceased to sit. Not counting Sundays, that's called the pocket veto. He sticks it in his pocket. You want to fiddle with it. Hey, if he doesn't say something in 10 days and they've sent it to him after all this baloney here we're talking about, not baloney, all this process, due process, it becomes law. Unless Congress is adjourned before the 10 days is up. You see all these little things going on? This is all process, not the outcome, but how they are to function. That's what our Constitution is all about. Our Constitution doesn't give us the outcome. It gives us the process. That's why we say it's a brief of common law government. Common law is not about the outcome. Our common law is the process we must follow to reach the outcome, whatever it is. And we don't know what's going to be. We just cookbook the process, and we better be pretty persnickety about it, like the Supreme Court says. Our Constitution requires government to turn square corners. Don't be cutting across the corner and trying to avoid some part of the process. No. If you do, the result is no good. If there's fraud in the election, Biden's not president. You're not going to convince me, you're never going to convince me that Virginia and South Carolina, places like that, produced that many votes for, what was that Arab that ran for president? I don't even want to say his name. I'd have to go wash my mouth out with soap. You're not going to convince me that he took a majority of those states in the election. No, that was voter fraud. And then it became even more blatantly apparent with Biden. Those that say it didn't happen are liars or stupid or just don't care. It's blatantly obvious. I say people aren't stupid. And I'm not the smartest man in the world. I'm never the smartest man in the room. But sometimes I'm as smart as other people. Just depends on the circumstances. I would never say I'm smarter than you. I don't know who I'm talking to even. Well, is it not a better way of making, let's go back. It says not counting Sundays. When you count those 10 days, the president can have that bill in his pocket. He says you can't count Sundays. Why? Why can't you count Sundays? I'll tell you why. It's part of our Christian tradition. It's part of how our Christian tradition works.